Check out Matthew on Instagram, and you'll see that he actually already has his own sports science site. So he's in high school, he's already writing, and he's joining us live now. He's going to interview me, but I have a couple words of advice for him too. It is connecting up. What is up, guys? What's up, dude?
Hey, man, nice to finally meet you.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah, I've
Hey.
been following you since like
Oh, yeah,
September. I've been watching your page go. Yeah, it's really great.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Well, I was
Yep.
looking at your site this morning, and I was really impressed by your writing. It's really good.
Thank you, thank you. There's still, of course, more to improve on, but thanks. That's great hearing that from you.
Yep. So I understand you have an interview for me, but before that, real quick,
Right.
I want to give you my top 3 pieces of advice as a high school student, okay?
Awesome, yeah.
Okay, number 1 is if you can figure out how to cut entertainment, you're going to make the whole rest of your life better. So you're young, you can do things, you can learn, you can use your body, you can explore things.
Right.
You don't
Right.
have bills to pay yet. Every hour you spend in front of the TV playing video games, watching pornography is hours. It's the best thing you can do is cut that stuff out. If
Of
you can
course.
figure out how to cut entertainment out of your life, you are going to end up so much more powerful. You're going to end up
Right.
creating. What would you do with your time if you didn't do any TV, Netflix, video games, porn? What would you do with your time? How much more writing could you get done? You see what I mean? So
Yeah. Yeah.
you have your whole life to be entertained. Down the road, you're going to have a real wife that's way better than any porno on the internet. I'm telling you that right
Oh
now.
my gosh.
I'm telling you that right now, you can set up the whole rest of your life. But that's advice number 1. You got to realize that entertainment is a trap. You got to go create life, not let life entertain you.
Productivity.
Number 2, realize that high school is a fantasy land. Don't judge yourself by any high school standards or care what anyone thinks about any of this high school stuff. It's a fantasy land that does not exist in the real world yet. In the real world, what's cool in high school is not necessarily what actually wins in the free market. So don't judge yourself on anything in high school, man. It's all a trick. It's a fantasy land. Now, if things are going well for you in high school, great. But either way, just don't judge yourself for anything in high school. I promise you, it's a fantasy land. It's not real.
More. Of course.
Number 3, and finally, don't let anyone convince you into bulking up with non-whole foods and putting junk into your diet. I went into high school at 92 pounds. I came out of high school at 205 pounds.
Wow.
It was so ingrained in my mind that I had to bulk up. And so I was putting so much garbage in my body, and I got horrible acne, which had really mental side effects that lasted for years. Even after the acne was gone, I was putting cover-up and makeup on my face for even years after the acne because I didn't want to look in the mirror and see what I had been through. It scarred me mentally. So those are my top 3 pieces of advice is number 1, cut out entertainment, or at least figure out how to systematically reduce things. I would say in order, reduce porno, number 1. Number 2, don't judge yourself for anything in high school because it's a fantasy land. And number 3, don't let anyone convince you that you become a world-class athlete by bulking up in high school because that's not how it's done. So I'm done with my high school advice. Now it's your chance to interview me.
Yeah, thank you for that advice, by the way. I think I'm at the point in high school. I'm a rising senior where I'm at the point where I have to transition from a teenager to sort of like a young man because I'm going to start living independently. So yeah, I just wanted to add that. Thank you so much for that. And we can jump right in, right? Okay.
Yep.
So before we get into like the nitty-gritty like technical side of why knees over toes work, just sort of tell us about like your journey with knees over toes. How did KOT and the athletic training group sort of propel your career in high school, in college, and even after that? So just elaborate on that.
Okay. So my knee problems really were serious by about age 12. So it probably started a little bit before that.
Wow.
Yeah, probably started a little bit before that. But by age 12 is when I realized that I was different than all the other kids. And I was so dedicated for basketball and trying so hard to get any advantage I could and doing every jump program. So by 12, I already had chronic jumper's knee. I couldn't go out and play like the other kids. I started having chronic knee dislocations where sometimes I'd have to leave school because my knee wouldn't pop back in place. So I couldn't
Oh,
walk, let alone
wow.
get around and go to PE class and stuff. By 14, my nickname was the old man. It took me at least half an hour. I'd have to get to practice half an hour before everyone else. I was a freshman in high school. So by the time I was 18, I was finishing high school, had no college recruitment whatsoever, had 3 knee surgeries, and had to look at what I was going to do with my life. So my options were either work in my parents' business, which meant property management, mulching, painting, keeping offices nice, stuff like that, which honestly I enjoyed, but not as much as basketball. So I made the decision that I would do that while saving up money to go to a prep school to somehow still try to market myself to play college basketball. Now at 18, I couldn't even play without my knees hurting.
Right.
So I spent the next 3 years just trying to figure out how to bulletproof the knees. And I didn't figure out much, but I figured out enough. To get myself to a junior college on a full ride scholarship. And at the end of 2 years as a starting point guard at a Division I junior college, I ended up getting a Division I scholarship offer to Boston University. I was 23 years old. The NCAA said, you've been out of high school 5 years. You got no eligibility left. I was left with the option, get a lawyer or keep pursuing my knees over toes journey even further. And already at Boston, the strength trainer there wasn't going to let me do my knees over toe stuff. So I said, screw it. I don't want to have to fight this thing legally just to end up another 2 years of not being able to train my knees over my toes and explore this. So I became a trainer immediately, and the rest is history. And I started that fall that I would have been a junior at Boston University. I started Athletic Truth Group with the concept that there is truth out there. There are answers out there, but it's going to take a team effort to actually get them known. And that brings me to now, 6 years later.
Wow, that's awesome. I think that's really like a testament to where passion, dedication, and commitment can really like take you. You turned all these like surgeries, these knee pains, and then even that situation with eligibility, and you turned that into a program that helped like thousands of lives, including my own. So I think I could speak on like behalf of everybody who supports you that was really helpful. And
I appreciate that.
Yeah. And segueing into the next question, a little context. In PE in 6th grade, I was in elementary school, and our teacher was made us do body squats as a class. And then I remember her saying, "Do not let your knees pass your toes." And then here you are debunking that myth, saying, "Please squat with your knees over toes." So my question is, like, from a tendon standpoint and from a muscle standpoint, why does knees over toes work specifically with jumper's knee? And how did you come to that idea? And did everybody agree with you in the beginning?
Okay, so what first got me onto the idea was the fact that I was looking for answers. I was hooked on painkillers, icing my knees 4 times a day, still had a 19-inch vertical. And Charles Poliquin, a legendary strength coach, rest in peace, said, the athlete whose knees can go farthest and strongest over his toes is actually the most protected. And I started looking at examples. I saw an Australian strength coach named Keegan Smith who was doing some of these things. I started looking at athletes and realizing, holy crap, Michael Jordan plays with his knees over his toes more than any other player in NBA history. I can't do that. How do I get there? And some of the things that Charles Poliquin and Keegan Smith were doing, it made sense, but I had to figure out, how do I get there with my shitty knees? So it was once thought that, oh, if you can do this knee over toe stuff, great. But if you can't, then don't force yourself into it. Well, my whole system is how anyone can get into it. Athlete X is a major name, and he says that a sissy squat is the worst exercise you can do. Yet Michael Jordan could land in that position and spring back up. But I have a list of videos of other NBA players who landed in that position and tore their ACL, and it ruined their careers. Not to mention, some of the best soccer players in the world warm up in that position. Not to mention the bodybuilder with the best and healthiest legs of all time. He's now in his 60s, still squatting ass to grass with 3 plates each side, with amazing form, with incredible mobility, while most of his competitors are either dead or have knee replacements. He could do the sissy squat. So what if I want to be great? Why can't I do it? Why can't I get there? Why is that the worst exercise, but the best athletes in the world can do it? So my system is a system of, no matter who you are, no matter what your genetics are, anyone can get there. And that's the trick, is that you start where you start and you assess the pain-free level and you go from there. The only thing that sparked the whole knees over toes was a 1970 study by Duke University that said if your knees go over your toes, it puts more pressure on your knees. Well, no fucking shit. If I hold a curl, it puts more pressure on my bicep. But that's the exact reason you need to be strong.
Exactly.
If we know that knee over toe, so that's all interpretation. That's like saying talking to your wife may lead to an argument. It also may lead to sex if you never talk to her. So with knee over toe, we know that when your knee goes over your toe, it puts more pressure on your knee. Well, damn, I dare you to find any dunker in the world. You will see, watch them in slow motion. You will see their knee go so far over their toe, it'll blow your mind. From Isaiah Rivera to so many others. And I would say now, actually, if you took the top 20 pro dunkers in the world, the majority of them use exercises that I've innovated. Most of them won't talk about it because they have their own programs, and it's totally understandable. But I'm telling you, over half of the top dunkers in the world are currently using exercises that I created. And it's because that force is coming in when you jump. 80% of people in jumping sports, basketball, volleyball, have jumper's knee. It's an epidemic. The other 20% are probably lying. Or honestly, I consider the other 20% probably don't work hard enough. If a guy plays basketball and doesn't have jumper's knee, he probably grew up not putting enough effort in the game, which was actually probably a good thing without realizing it since the system is so bad. You get my point. The harder you work, the more likely you are to have jumper's knee because the system does not address the forces that you're about to experience when you actually jump. So now I can jump every day with maximal intensity, but there's not only the knee over toe factor, but also then factors that you'll want to look into, such as jump balance. And you'll just see dunker after dunker after dunker, ignoring the science that when you plant one way and you aren't as good on the other plant, 70% more chance of knee ligament tears and jumper's knee. It's just not natural to build up one side of your body but not the other. So even some of the top dunkers you see are using that, and they're not doing that in their post, but in their training, they're actually doing their non-dominant plant. And what's really interesting is when they've done a study with long jumpers, the traditional thing is just to do your long jump. Well, they did this study that they had people work both sides. They got 70% more jump improvement than the group who just did traditional long jump training. Yet the conclusion of the study said, wow, considering this, we think jumping off either leg in long jump should be used in the early stages of a career. Early stages? Why not later stages? Guess who's the only guy close to breaking a jumping record in the last 30 years? Because you know that in Olympic jumping sports, no records have been broken since the early 90s. I don't know if you know this. People assume athletes are better. Oh, athletes can accelerate more, but they decelerate worse because 669% more money is spent studying acceleration than deceleration. No, athletes can't decelerate and can't jump as high or as far or as bouncy as they could 20, 30 years ago. So guess who's the only athlete recently who's come close to those records? His name is Christian Taylor. And guess what? He was so riddled by injuries, he was about to retire. His coach said, well, we could try switching to your other leg. So he switched to his other leg, ended up slingshotting past his previous best, winning a gold medal and coming second all time and getting very close to breaking the record, only to, guess what, make no progress over the last few years. Guess why? Because he switched to this other leg. He missed the brilliant truth right in front of his eyes, which is to work both sides. Because when you're only working one side and letting the other side underdevelop, you're the sum of both legs. How good is your long jump if you stood there on one leg with no running start? So even though you have a takeoff leg, you're the sum of both legs. So Christian Taylor, through total accident, ended up winning a gold medal and coming closest to beating anyone in the last 20, 30 years and having a chance at being the first male to break a jumping sport record since the 90s. But he blew it because now he switched to the other leg instead of realizing the truth right in front of him that you're the sum of both legs. So very interesting stuff, but that should give you a full concept. If you're seeing 70% more jump increase and 70% reduction of knee injuries, you can see that these things are interlinked. Being evenly balanced between sides has the exact same result on not only athleticism, but also jumper's knee and ligament tear prevention.
Yeah, and you sort of practice what you preach, like all these deceleration things, and then you're like on your Instagram, you're like jumping off these super high boxes, and then you're like landing on your knees, absorbing all of that, and then you're propelling yourself back up to dunk a basketball. I think that's truly great. I'd like to break that down a little bit. You have that eccentric aspect, that deceleration, correct? And then you are absorbing all of that force, that downward force through your knees. Then you have that isometric amortization phase. And then you have that concentric phase where you're propelling yourself back up to dunk a basketball. Did I miss anything in that?
I don't know. Those are bigger words than I know, but it sounds
Oh,
good to me. And basically, when you approach a jump, the first thing that slows you down into the jump is your tibialis muscle. Yet, no study's been done on getting stronger, and it's completely missing in training. So, tibialis is actually the foundation of knee ability because it's the first thing that decelerates you. It's the decelerator of the foot. So, tibialis begins the process. Then that same leg, the knee bends over the toe. So now your Patrick step up leads to immediate, both those lead to jump increase and reduction of jumper's knee. Then the other leg comes in. The other leg comes in with the calf and with elasticity. Then you go up to dunk. Now wait till you watch the landing. Now you could practically take a jump sequence. Who's your favorite dunker?
Isaiah Rivera, Jay Clark.
Awesome. Isaiah Rivera has personally been down to ATG. I've taught him exercises that he's used. He sent me his form videos with beautiful form. I think he's one of the best in the world, and he's staying healthy because he understands what's actually happening in the jump. But take Isaiah Rivera, watch a dunk from him. Now, put it in slow motion. Then scroll backwards in reverse. You just figured out your strength training system to prevent injury. Now put it forwards. You just figured out your strength training system to jump higher. It's really that simple. But again, if exercise science as a whole is putting almost 7 times as much money only into studying the go, but not what protects us, that's what's leading to the injuries. And that's why guys are suffering, not in speed sports, but when they have to slow down. So team sports, basketball, football, everything, team sports are suffering so hard because the studies are only into what makes you go fast, not what makes you go slow down. And then those injuries prevent you from getting faster. There was a study on 13 to 15-year-old kids. One group did only forward sprinting. One group did only backward sprinting. At the end of the 8-week study, the group going backwards got way faster running forwards than the group who ran forwards, and they gained 4 times as much vertical increase.
Wow. That is wow. I've never heard of those studies before. So moving on to towards like the future of ATG program, is there still like yet to discover in terms of like deceleration or the tibialis muscle? And through the lens of like 5 years in the future, where do you see your knees over toes teachings residing within like the athletic community as well as like the population in general?
So one thing about my system is that, each individual piece is a truth that anyone can apply. So my role is to spread and teach these truths, whether even if all you did with your team was have them all, instead of running suicides at the end, just go against the wall and do tibialis raises until you're on fire. That would change basketball injuries across the planet. So my goal is not to make everyone do the exact same system. My goal is to get truth applied because it's just truth, whether you like it or not. It's there. It's true. If you're not addressing it, you're suffering the consequences, and athletes are suffering the consequences. Look, dunking is cool, but not being able to get to that point because of pain holding you back. My goal is not to create a super civilization where everyone's doing triple between the legs dunks. My goal is just that when you're 18, you're not sitting on an operating table wondering if they're going to cut open the right spot, wondering if you're ever going to play basketball again, ending up hooked on painkiller. Like, it's just no way to live life. So my goal is just to put in the truths. How far people want to take the performance side is totally up to them. But my goal is to get basic truths well known worldwide, that from LeBron to LeBron's grandma, that everyone knows that the grandma with that tibialis raise can factually live longer in terms of walking ability and not wind up on a walker and a wheelchair. So if you start training your tibialis, you're actually putting money in the bank that long term you won't be in a wheelchair or a walker, and short term that you're reducing jumpers, knee, shin splints, and so many other things. So that's all. Is the powerlifters and bodybuilders, they were the hot topic in training when training became a thing, when there was TV, when internet came around. So our whole sports training system is built on powerlifting and bodybuilding, which are their own sports. There is not yet an actual human movement system. That's what ATG is. It's putting in the missing links that powerlifting and bodybuilding left behind. And there's some other wonderful ones out there. Guys like Ido Portal, and there's other awesome, wonderful forward thinkers. I'm just doing my part in just putting all the ego aside, in recognizing the history of training, that bodybuilding and powerlifting happened to be what was popular right when there was even a chance of things spreading, when it went from books to TV and internet. That's what training is based on. That's what the studies are based on. How can you even have a program and say, oh, this is you know, a science-backed, this is the best science-backed jump program, something like that, when no one's even tested strengthening a tibialis raise. We have to recognize we're just not there yet. And your teachers in college, you know, out of fear and out of wanting to keep, you know, good public vision, they have to pretend they know it all, but they're so far.
Right. So ATG is much less of like, oh, get these people doing 360 East Bays in like a week. It's more of giving people the truth behind training and proper injury prevention and health.
Exactly.
Something like that.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that way they know it, and then they can use it for the rest of their lives in any possible way they need with themselves and others. That's the real goal of it.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so we can move into our quick fire round. So it should be fun. And if you keep your answers to 5 seconds and under, that would be great. Okay, so the first question would be, who is the most explosive NBA player?
Michael Jordan.
Awesome. Who is your favorite professional dunker?
I would say Michael Jordan. I mean, he was in a dunk contest. He got paid for that. So I'm going Michael Jordan.
Okay. Who is the highest jumper you have trained?
Connor Barth.
Connor Barth?
At basketball.
Yep. What is a common mistake when it comes to training and rehabbing your patellar tendinopathy?
Yeah, not confronting exactly what's happening in that jump. It's right there in front of you.
Okay. What is an overrated exercise when it comes to increasing your vertical jump?
I'd say a box squat, just because most guys get really good at that, but their ankle and knee can't handle it. But I don't think there's anything that's a bad movement. I just think there's movements that then you're leaving so many gaps and you're missing other movements. If your body can do it, it's not bad.
Mm-hmm. And is there an underrated exercise when it comes to increasing your vertical jump?
Literally everything in my system. Every single one is like these missed gems.
I agree.
You don't see any of them in gyms. They're all underrated.
Yeah, of course. And what is your definition of success?
My definition of success is achieving what you set out to do and how many people are glad that you're living. So that has nothing to do with haters. That has to do with how many people are glad you are living. And that has nothing to do with you being some boss and having 16 cars in your garage and shit like that. How many people are glad you are living? That's success.
Awesome. So I know you touched on this a little bit, but what would be some advice to your 16-year-old self?
Definitely the 3 that I told you.
Yeah.
No entertainment starting with porn. Realize high school is a fantasy land, so don't judge yourself or be hard on yourself about anything. And then don't think that bulking up in high school is the solution to becoming a world-class athlete. It takes time, and you have to put whole foods in your body, or you're going to wind up with acne and other problems which are so much worse than you thought your problem was of not having enough muscle.
Okay. And the last question is, to sum it up in one sentence or phrase, what is a key takeaway the audience should bring home?
One key takeaway? Probably,
Yes.
I would just say that truth in general, don't just think something's true because someone says it. Like, use your own eyes. You're so powerful, and the world may be missing truths that you're going to figure out. But if we're all just part of cogs in a wheel of telling us what to think, then how do we fix stats like everyone in basketball having jumper's knee? How do we fix these massive problems? How do we fix 790,000 knee replacements last year in the U.S.? There are problems in the world, whether it be racial inequality or anything else. There are problems that need our attention on them. And if their problem exists, that means the truth is not there yet. It's just not there. Because you can't be at the adverse effect of something if you've really got the truth there.
Right.
Things go right when the truth is there. So the world needs every single person to have their attention, and don't just assume that truth is true because someone says it. Anything I say it's not true because I say it. It's only true if you can observe that thing and you're like, that's true, and then you may be able to even enhance that.
Yeah, and that's sort of the idea of what ATG was built on, just delivering that truth.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that's the end of my questions. Thank you so much for this opportunity. It's truly
One more question for you.
Okay.
What are your goals?
Oh yeah. Oh, first of all, I want to dunk one day, but
Dude,
maybe I'll see
so
that.
worth it, dude. I'm telling you, it's so worth it. Now look, anything you can just do automatically, right? If you're the guy who already can run fast, who already can dunk, that's awesome, and you should be setting even more goals for yourself. But even if you're never going to play in the NBA, just working yourself to the point of being able to do something like a dunk that you couldn't do naturally. It's so valuable. I can't even tell you.
Yep.
Like, for me, I wouldn't trade the ability to dunk. There's no amount of money someone could pay me. It just doesn't exist to trade them the ability to dunk. Every billionaire driving by in a Lamborghini, I'm like, but you can't dunk. So I'm telling you, the ability to dunk, pursue things, and it's a beautiful thing to pursue because it's not about the money. It's just about overcoming something
Right.
you couldn't do naturally.
From it too.
So the feeling then when you can do that is so cool. It's such a pure goal, right? Because it's not, it's not, oh, I want to make this much money so I can drive this car. It's not a materialistic goal. So it's beautiful. I say don't give up on that goal, and you're going to learn so much. Sitting there and being a vertical jump sports scientist and not being able to dunk, there's so many guys doing this. They call themselves biomechanists or other things, but like you can't jump high and you're missing things because you don't know what it's like and you're not actually producing those results. So if you can't dunk right now and you go get the ability to dunk, you're going to be so much more successful in what you're trying to do.
Right. Because like when I started this journey,
So
I think it was like a self-commitment to not only, thank you. I think it was like a commitment to like also learning a lot more about myself. Like I learned how to be consistent. I learned how to be disciplined. I learned how to learn. And I really like sharing that through you and through my website, of course. And also another goal is just, you know, a more concrete goal would be like just pursuing exercise science in the future. Like you said, I got to back it up by dunking, but in college and furthermore after that, I just want to explore more about exercise science and sports science and just share what I learned through my website. And thank you again for this opportunity.
I love it. And you're a really good writer. Keep honing those writing skills. Not a lot of people realize that I've written over 500 articles. So even though I'm doing videos and stuff, it's the writing that fuels everything. So keep writing because there's so many ways you can turn that into a career if you're a really good writer and you're following your passion. And lastly, to be really clear, it's more about the pursuit of dunking than the dunk itself. So whether you get there or not is actually less of the important fact. Now, because keep in mind, dunking's relative too. I mean, it's an arbitrary 10-foot rim. Everyone's born at different heights. You get my point.
Right. Yeah.
The pursuit of improving how high you can jump naturally, though, that would be a better way of wording it. Whether it's being able to grab the rim or dunk on a 9-foot rim, and keep yourself in that pursuit. Don't let anyone convince you, oh, just because you're an exercise scientist now, you get to sit on the sidelines and not have your own balls on the line. Keep your balls on the line. Keep that gun against your head. Necessity is the mother of invention. And if you don't have a gun against your own head to keep jumping higher, I consider that your vertical jump career in terms of being a coach just became total shit. There's no way to know if you're right or not if you're not actually jumping higher.
I agree.
Because wouldn't you want to jump higher? I mean, if it works, wouldn't you want to jump higher?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So I was led wrong by that. I mean, the #1 selling jump book of all time is Jump Attack by Tim Grover, who can't dunk, who trained Michael Jordan, who was already dunking from the foul line. So since Jordan began Jump Attack, he lost inches on his vertical, got chronic knee tendonitis, and he did get a stronger upper body. So when I did Jump Attack, do you want to know the exact results I got? I lost inches on my vertical. I got chronic knee tendonitis, and I did bulk up my upper body. I got the exact same results Jordan did. The problem is I was starting from a 19-inch vertical, and Jordan was starting from being the most elastic guy in history. He did not jump higher from that program, so that program has led so many people wrong and given so many people jumper's knee because that's the exact result that it had. And the strength coach himself, who I think is a wonderful person and a positive person, but I hate to say it, he fucked up my knees along with a lot of other people because that was the actual result. Wouldn't he be this high jump? Like, wouldn't you want to jump high if your shit worked? Like, wouldn't your workouts, if it works, shouldn't it work? Right? So, like, who wouldn't want to jump high? Look at the entire ATG staff. None of us have knee pain.
Freaks.
Derek's 43 and was a client at age 38, far from dunking. And now he's 43, dunking off either leg. Jeff could never dunk, doesn't give a shit about dunking, and it's just like, oh, shit, I can dunk. Because if it works, it should work. So don't ever trust anyone. Don't go trust a financial advisor who's broke and in debt. Don't trust someone to tell you about relationships who doesn't have a phenomenal relationship. Do not trust people to tell you what's true if they are not exhibiting the exact result that you want. And that's why I say someone like Isaiah Rivera, who's a competitor for me business-wise, go ahead and do his program. I think you're going to get results because he's actually experiencing those results. You see what I mean? So I have respect for anyone who's experiencing the results you want. I would have to say, yeah, it's a good idea. If you know what I mean? Yeah.
So that goes a long way with, like, you know, checking your sources and having credibility when you are giving something out to the world. I really appreciate that advice.
Yep.
And
you bet.
Thanks so much for this opportunity. I think it's really a highlight of my high school career, getting to talk with you.
Nice.
Learning a lot more.
Thousands of people are going to see this. So make sure you send me the exact, link to your site and stuff so I can make sure people can check it out. Cut out the porn and keep writing. Get ahead of the game.
Of course.
All right, brother.
Keep that in mind. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much for watching.